It was a regular gray Thursday morning in Washington, D.C. The big government building, called the Dirksen Senate Office Building, was filled with important people. Inside a room named 226, the lights buzzed quietly, making everything look a little dull. A big, long table stood in the middle where important people in fancy suits sat. They held papers, but most of them weren't even reading them. Meetings like this happen all the time. People made long speeches, argued about things, and said things just to get on TV. They weren't really there to fix anything. But today was different. Not because of the weather. Not because of what was on the schedule. But because of the way Pam Bondi sat. Pam was quiet, calm, and still. But her eyes? Her eyes showed she was thinking, watching. She wasn't just there to sit and listen. She was there for something bigger. The meeting started just 20 minutes ago, but already, it was full of arguing. Today's topic was about the police, how they do their jobs, and whether they are fair. But really, it was about blaming people. Some blamed the police. Some blamed the government. Some blamed each other. Everyone came ready to point fingers. Across from Pam sat a man named Senator Richard Caldwell. He had white hair, sharp glasses, and looked more like a teacher than a leader. He had been in this job for a few years and had become famous on TV. He liked to say big, bold things about the police. People on the internet loved his speeches. He leaned forward and spoke in a strong voice. "Let's stop pretending this is about justice," he said. "This is about control." The room got quiet. "The police and government," he continued, "are not protecting us anymore. They are being used as weapons. They spy on people, use too much force, and pick favorites. If we don't stop this, we are helping them do it." He paused for a moment, looking at the cameras. Some people nodded. Others just wanted him to finish talking. Pam didn't move. She didn't blink. Caldwell kept talking. "And let me be clear. The people who support this system aren't heroes. They are helping bad things happen." The room was silent again. Some people took deep breaths. Pam sat with her arms crossed, her back straight. She looked calm, but inside she was thinking. To most people, Pam Bondi was just a lawyer from Florida who used to be in charge of legal cases there. But Pam had seen real pain. She had met parents crying for their missing children. She had seen police officers cry when they failed to protect someone. She had seen lawyers work all night on cases no one cared about. And now this man with shiny cufflinks was telling her that all of it, all the hard work, the late nights, the people fighting for justice, was just part of a big, unfair game. Pam slowly reached for her microphone. She didn't slam it. She didn't sigh or roll her eyes. She simply pressed the button. A small red light turned on. Caldwell didn't look at her at first. But when the room went completely silent, he had to. Everyone turned. Even the workers in the back stopped typing on their computers. She began speaking softly. "Mr. Chairman, may I say something?" At that moment, everything changed. Caldwell leaned back in his chair. He smiled a little, thinking he had won. He believed he had given the kind of speech that would be played on TV over and over again. He thought he was the star of the show. "You have the floor, Ms. Bondi," the chairman said. Pam adjusted her microphone. But she didn't look at Caldwell. Not yet. She turned to the chairman and spoke, not with anger, not with shouting, but with something much more powerful, clarity. "I listened carefully to Senator Caldwell's words," she said, "and I'd like to respond, not as a politician, but as someone who has worked in law for over 20 years. That surprised the room. She wasn't going to yell back. She wasn't going to insult him. She was just going to tell the truth. And that was what made her powerful. Caldwell leaned forward, trying to interrupt. "If I may." Pam didn't even glance at him. "You had your time, Senator," she said. "I listened without interrupting. I'd appreciate the same courtesy." Her voice was steady. She wasn't asking. She was telling. "You spoke about government power," Pam continued. "Let me tell you what real power looks like." She took a breath. "There was a girl named Lena," Pam said. "She was taken by bad people and moved across 3 states before the FBI found her in a small motel in Texas. She had no ID, no phone, just bruises and a name someone forced her to use." The room was frozen. Pam continued, "I was the one who got the phone call. I was the one who sat with her as she tried to remember her real name." Caldwell blinked. His confident look was starting to fade. "You talk about the police doing bad things," Pam said, "but you never talk about the good ones. The agents who stay in a van for 12 hours watching a house to keep people safe. The ones who pretend to be criminals to catch real criminals. The ones who have to call families and tell them bad news." She turned back to the chairman. "I won't say the system is perfect," she admitted. "It's not. But throwing every officer, every agent, every judge into the same pile and calling them evil? That's not justice. That's just a show. Caldwell shifted in his seat. He tried to act normal, but his confidence was fading. With all due respect, Miss Bondi. Pam didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. You stood here and told a story, she said. But your story is weak. And your facts are wrong. Caldwell's jaw tightened. You talk about communities hurt by the system, she said. I have worked on those cases. I have fought for those changes. You gave a speech. I lived it. For the first time, Caldwell looked unsure. And while we're at it, Pam added, you say officers work for political reasons. Do you know why most of them do this job? To pay their rent. To take care of their families. To go home to their kids who think they are heroes. A small cough came from the back of the room. But nobody moved. Nobody interrupted her now. Pam took a breath. She wasn't done, but she wasn't rushing either. Every word was careful. You're right to ask questions, she said. That's your job. But when you call every officer corrupt, every agent a villain, you don't sound brave. You sound lazy. Caldwell looked down at his papers. They suddenly seemed very empty. Pam wasn't done. The system isn't perfect, she said. Let me tell you about a case from Tampa. A case that nearly broke my team. She didn't have papers in front of her. She didn't need them. In 2014, a 12-year-old boy was shot and left behind a small store. People were too scared to talk. A grandmother said she heard a loud noise but ignored it because shootings were so common there. Pam let that sit for a moment. That tells me one thing, she said. Violence has become background noise. She continued, we couldn't solve that case alone. Local police tried their best. But we were stuck. So we asked the FBI for help. They didn't overreach. They didn't take over. They helped. She looked right at Caldwell. In 4 weeks they found the weapon. They found the car. And they found the man responsible. Caldwell tried to keep his face neutral. But his jaw was tight. They did it quietly, Pam said. No press conference. No bragging. Just justice. And with that, the room stayed silent. Even the people in the back didn't whisper. Caldwell, the man who had walked in with a big smile, now sat quietly. His eyes flicked to his papers, then to his tablet, then back to Pam. And she wasn't done reminding everyone what justice really meant. Pam turned to face the whole room. At first, she had been talking to just one man, but now she wanted everyone to listen. You can't fix a broken system by blaming everyone in it, she said. You want fairness? So do I. But you can't have fairness if you don't respect the people who do the hard work. Her voice didn't get louder. In fact, it got quieter, but that made people listen even more. I have fired bad police officers. I have sent them to jail. And I have also gone to funerals and held the hands of parents who lost their children. Children who wore badges and worked to protect others. She looked around the room. Some people looked uncomfortable, but she didn't stop. You talk about a broken system like it's just a fancy phrase. For me, it's my job. Every day. The man in charge of the meeting leaned forward. Miss Bondi, may I say something? I'd rather you didn't, Pam said. She wasn't rude. She just spoke clearly. There was something strong in her voice. She wasn't here to play politics. Not today. She turned back to the man she had been talking to first. His name was Senator Hobridge. Let me ask you something, Senator, Pam said. Have you ever sat in a courtroom with a mother who watched the man who killed her son go free because of a small mistake in the paperwork? The senator didn't answer. I have, Pam said. More than once. And every time I had to explain to that mother why the law works the way it does. She wanted justice. And now you are telling me I don't care about the law? She paused for a moment. Then she said, we both want fairness. But don't mix up fairness with blaming everyone. There's a line between the two and you crossed it. In the back of the room, a young man in a suit looked nervous. His eyes were wide as he typed quickly on his laptop. He was probably trying to write something smart about this moment. But Pam wasn't thinking about how it would look in the news. She was thinking about Lena, about the 12-year-old boy, about the police officers she knew personally. Maybe that was why nobody in the room could stop watching her. And what she said next, it would make everyone stop pretending. Pam leaned in slightly, resting her elbows on the table. Her fingers were locked together. The small red light on her microphone was still glowing, but she didn't rush. This wasn't about winning. It was about telling the truth. Senator Hobridge, she said, you talked about how the government uses special tools like search warrants and cameras to track criminals. You said that's a bad thing. Let's talk about that. Hobridge shifted in his chair. He crossed his arms and stared down at his desk. He knew she was about to say something important, but but he didn't know how bad it would be for him. In 2016, Pam continued, a group of very bad people were caught. They were kidnapping children and moving them from one city to another. We had to use search warrants and special cameras to catch them. And yes, we worked with the federal government. She paused. 4 girls were saved. 4 children. One of them was 11. The room was silent. That's the kind of work you now call too much government power, she said. She let that sit in the air for a moment before continuing. You also said another law, Section 702, was an invasion of privacy. Let me remind you what that law has done. It has stopped real attacks. In 2018, it helped stop a plan to blow up a government building in Spokane. Hobridge opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but Pam kept going. You can quote laws all day, she said. I've had to use them to keep people safe. There's a difference. Someone across the table scribbled something down. The room felt heavier now, not because people were mad, but because they were realizing the truth. You also said that the DA, another agency that stops crime, acts without rules, Pam said. Let me tell you what the DEA did in 2015. They stopped a group that was selling a dangerous drug called fentanyl. That drug killed 3 teenagers in Sarasota. Pam turned back to Hobridge. I met one of the mothers. Do you know what she asked me? She waited. She asked if people like you even knew her son's name. Hobridge blinked. Pam did not. You can talk about ideas all you want, she continued. You can make big speeches and use big words like police state and corrupt system. But when you do that without also talking about the people saved, the families helped, the crime stopped, you're not being fair. You're changing history. Her voice was still calm, but there was something sharp behind it now. You said that people like me who stand up for law enforcement are just making excuses for bad behavior. Let me tell you who I stand up for. She listed them out. The DEA agent who worked undercover for 18 months and still can't sleep at night because he checks his locks 5 times. The lawyer who stayed up until 2 a.m. making sure a case was so strong that the criminals didn't even bother fighting in court. The little 9-year-old girl who stood in front of a courtroom and pointed to the man who hurt her, while holding her grandmother's hand. She leaned back. Her voice softened again. That's who I defend. Not your version of the story. Now, it wasn't just Hobridge looking uncomfortable. Another senator, an older woman from Arizona, shifted in her seat. She looked down deep in thought. Maybe she remembered something personal. Maybe she understood. Pam took a deep breath. Then she finished. I'm not here to defend people who do bad things, she said. But I won't sit here while you turn every honest police officer, every lawyer, and every parent who wants justice into a joke for your politics. She looked around the room. We work in the real world, she said. And you? You're up here practicing speeches. She reached for the microphone and turned it off. The small red light went dark. Nobody clapped. This wasn't the kind of moment for applause. But the silence said everything. It stretched so long that people started to look at each other. They didn't know what to say or do. The man in charge of the meeting, Senator Gerald, cleared his throat. Thank you, Ms. Bondi, he said. But his voice was quieter than usual, like he had just realized something important. Across the table, Hobridge sat back. He ran a hand down his tie like he was trying to brush something off, but there was nothing there. No dust. No dirt. Just discomfort. The people typing on laptops had stopped. Their hands were frozen on the keys. A young assistant behind Pam was tapping his pen nervously. Then he realized he was making noise and put the pen down very carefully. A reporter in the back turned to her coworker and whispered, "Did you get that?" The other reporter nodded. She was already writing what would soon be the most shared quote from the hearing. You gave a speech. I lived it. The cameras didn't move. But something had changed. People at home weren't expecting this. They thought they'd see another boring meeting full of political arguments. But this was different. Hobridge fixed his glasses and leaned toward the microphone. Ms. Bondi, he said, while I respect your experience, I think we still need to talk about. Pam just looked at him. She didn't say a word. She had already moved on. Senator Gerald cut in. Senator Hobridge, I think Ms. Bondi's words stand for themselves. Hobridge gave a fake little smile. Of course. Another senator, a woman from Missouri, leaned toward Pam and whispered, that was something. Pam barely nodded. But she heard her. The meeting continued. More people spoke. More questions were asked. More answers were given. But none of it mattered. What had just happened was too big. And outside, the internet was already exploding. Within 30 minutes, Pam's words were everywhere. And everyone was watching. Pam Bondi's name was everywhere. People on TV, on the internet, and even on TikTok were talking about her. Short videos of her were being shared over and over. Not just on news channels but also on fun pages that usually talk about movies and music. Some videos had titles like, "This is how you handle a mean politician." People kept watching, liking, and sharing. Every second, more and more people saw what she did. Inside the big government building, where important people make decisions, everyone was talking about it. Some younger senators, newer members of the government, walked out of the meeting room whispering to each other. One of them was even heard saying, "Wow, she just completely embarrassed him." That was like a political funeral. Even the reporters, the people who write the news, started changing their stories. At first, they thought they would write about how Senator Hallbridge was very upset with the police and other officers who enforced the law. But after what Pam Bondi did, that wasn't the big story anymore. Now the story was all about her. As some reporters rode the elevator down, they were quiet. Two important workers from the government stood inside. One finally sighed and said, "We are going to get phone calls about this all day." The other worker didn't say anything. He just pressed the elevator button twice like that would make it go faster. But what happened after the meeting when the cameras were off was even more interesting. 2 hours later, Pam Bondi was walking through a hallway, away from the big government room. She let out a small breath, one she didn't even know she had been holding. Her shoes made soft clicks on the shiny floor as she walked. Under her arm, she held a brown folder, but she never even needed to open it during the meeting. She had known exactly what to say without notes. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Rachel, her friend who helps her talk to the news. "You're everywhere. Don't go to your car yet." Pam raised an eyebrow. Before she could ask why, she turned a corner and saw it for herself. A big group of reporters was waiting outside by the parking lot. They had cameras, microphones, and phones ready. But they weren't yelling questions. They just wanted to see her. Pam didn't look scared or surprised. She just kept walking, calm as ever. Like magic, Rachel appeared next to her, right on time. "We're going out the side," Rachel whispered. "A second car is waiting. Let them all stay at the front." Pam nodded. No hesitation. Just business. As they walked through a quieter hallway, Rachel spoke again, still in a low voice. "You're getting calls from both sides. Fox News wants to talk to you. MSNBC wants to talk to you. 2 different podcasts want to interview you." Even a former government lawyer said, "That was the cleanest takedown I've seen in years." Pam didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed just a little. Rachel looked at her carefully and added, "Hallbridge's office already released a statement. They're saying he was taken out of context." Pam stopped walking. "Was he?" Rachel shook her head. "No." Pam nodded once and kept walking. Meanwhile, things weren't going so well for Senator Hallbridge. His assistant Eli looked pale. He paced back and forth inside Hallbridge's office, holding his headset, which was half falling off his ear. "I'm telling you, this is blowing up. The videos are everywhere. One clip already has 1.3 million views." He shook his head and continued, "She didn't even raise her voice, and it looks like she completely defeated you." Hallbridge stood near the window, arms crossed, staring outside at the street. He took a deep breath and muttered, "I didn't say anything untrue." Eli sighed. "No, sir. But people aren't paying attention to the details. All they see is that you attacked law enforcement, and she destroyed your argument." Hallbridge turned around. "Then we explain it again. We fix it." Eli shook his head. "It's too late. The damage is done. We have 2 choices, double down or change the subject." There was a long silence. Then Hallbridge asked quietly, "Do you think I looked weak?" Eli didn't answer. But the silence was the answer. Pam Bondi stepped into the black SUV waiting for her. Rachel got in too and shut the door. "I'm guessing you don't want to go on a press tour?" Rachel asked. Pam shook her head. "Nope." "What about an interview with Dana Harrow?" Pam sighed. "I'm not going on TV just to celebrate myself. I said what I needed to say. The rest is just noise." Rachel tilted her head. "You do know that people are calling this a turning point, right?" Pam looked out the window as the car started moving. "It's not," she said. "It's just the first time someone stopped pretending." Rachel checked her phone again. "Your email is blowing up. Police unions, advocacy groups, and, weirdly, even 2 Democratic staffers." Pam raised an eyebrow. "Really?" One of them wrote, "We didn't agree with everything, but she was the only one in that room who sounded like she had actually been there." Pam was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's the problem, isn't it? They act like this is all just a theory. Like real people don't suffer when we get things wrong. The car fell into silence. Pam didn't know it yet, but her words were already making a difference. 3 days later, Pam was sitting alone in a small diner by the highway. No cameras. No reporters. Just a warm cup of coffee, a half-eaten piece of toast, and a folded newspaper beside her plate. A waitress, an older woman with deep wrinkles in her hands, walked by and refilled Pam's cup without even asking. Pam looked up. "Thanks." The woman gave her a tired smile. "You're her, aren't you?" Pam tilted her head. "Depends. Who is her?" The waitress nodded. "The lady who told that senator what we've all been thinking. I saw the video. You said it straight. I like that." Pam gave a polite nod, but the woman wasn't done. "My son's a deputy. He was thinking about quitting. He said he was tired of people treating him like the bad guys. But after he saw that video, he told me, maybe someone finally said what I've been feeling." Pam blinked. She hadn't expected that. The woman patted the coffee pot and said, "You helped more people than you think." Pam sat still for a moment. Then she unfolded the newspaper. On page 3 in the lower left corner was a small article titled, "When Truth Beats Theater." It didn't mention her name right away, but the first paragraph made it clear. Later that afternoon, she got an email from an old government lawyer in Ohio. It was only 4 lines long. "Watch the hearing. Thank you. You spoke for a lot of US who don't have the microphone anymore. Keep going." Pam closed her laptop and sat back. She hadn't gone to that meeting to make a statement. But she had. Not because she yelled. Not because she tried to win the crowd. But because she told the truth. And in a world full of people who only care about looking right, the truth is what really matters. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.